right, welcome to this Fiona update. Once again, it is noon today on September 24th, and they are still dealing with the storm. Looking at some of the observations, you can still see wind gusts up over 30 and some over 50 miles an hour still being reported, especially in the northeastern part of the eastern part of Nova Scotia. And you can see up here as we go further north, you can see Prince Edward Island's got some 64 mile an hour wind gusts. The center of it is somewhere over here, I think. Go up a little further north. It's over here. It's not moving very fast. That's the problem. So we're still seeing some of these very strong wind gusts here. Like at East Point, a wind of from the west at 44 miles an hour, gusting to 62. Yeah, the center is probably right over here. There's a 74 mile an hour wind gust at St. Island Meteorological Aeronautical Presentation System. It's south wind at 59, gusting to 74. And if we go over to Newfoundland here, they're getting in some of the wind now too as well. This site here, Port aux Basques, reporting southeast wind at 55, gusting to 76. So incredible, what an incredible storm this has been. And all the way up into this area here now, we're seeing the wind gusts too now. Cape Whitty, northeast wind at 45, gusting to 56. So these winds are still howling here. And look at this, 71 degrees. This is unheard of. All the way up here, 71 degrees, south wind at 15, gusting to 29. The winds aren't too bad, but this is some real heat that's going to be transported into the Arctic, and this could be a real mess once this gets to Greenland. I fear that we're going to see a huge melt of ice from this as a result. So very significant storm for a lot of areas. And, I mean, the worst is probably over for Nova Scotia, but it's still continuing, the high winds, so they're not really able to make too many repairs right now. But some of these sites, even this site here at Caribou Point, just incredible winds. If we look at the winds through the night here, just to show you what they've been dealing with, look at this. I mean, this is very incredible here. Very incredible. I mean, they do get coastal storms and nor'easters, but nothing like this. This is insane, these winds. So really, and we can also look at St. Peter's here and show you that the kind of conditions again they've been dealing with all night long. It's quite incredible to see these conditions, and we'll have to see what the actual peak wind gusts were reported, but in a lot of sites. But absolutely incredible to see this kind of wind. And let's see, Hart Island. So it's just there's a whole bunch of observation stations here we can look at here. North Point, Prince Edward Island. Prince Edward Island got hit also very hard as well. So, yep, plenty of winds gusting over hurricane force there. So, yeah, really bad situation. Now let's go to the power outages because we have, all right, it just went down, but it was over 400,000 a little while ago. So I guess they are trying to restore power already, but it was over 400,000 at one point. And if we look at NB Power, which is New Brunswick Power, you can see here there's one big outage here right in the middle here. So that's a lot of people here that are out of power. You can see these are big. This is probably a main outage here or transmission line outage. These kind of winds, I would imagine there has been damage to the transmission line system, but also to the distribution system. So the restoration is going to be quite a long task here. So let's get the latest from the National Hurricane Center on Fiona, and we're just going to be talking about Fiona in this update. Yes, there are other storms out there, and we'll talk about that in the weather update later. But let's just talk about post-tropical storm Fiona right now, because this thing is going to track again into the Arctic. It's gonna arrive in Greenland at some point. All right, which I've never seen this ever before. This is history here in the making, and this is all driven by climate change. We have warmer than normal oceans, and this is what happens when you have warmer than normal oceans, as well as a jet stream that's completely messed up. So these storms, instead of being steered away, go straight up to the north. So let's take a look at the latest public advisory. Hurricane force wind, storm surge, and heavy rains continue across portions of Atlantic Canada. As of 11 a.m., its location is 47.9 north, 61.3 west, about 100 miles west-northwest of Port Orbosk, North Newfoundland. Maximum sustained winds are 80 miles an hour, moving north at 25 miles an hour. So it's slowed down for that area. That's not that fast. Minimum central pressure, 945 millibars to 7.91 inches. And the warnings still stay up. And the extent is 115 miles, and the tropical storm force winds now reach out over 405 miles from the center. We have the satellite image as well we can look at here over on the right hand of your screen. Let's see if you can see that. But there is Fiona right there. And you can see it's not really moving that much at all. Looks like it's barely moving, but look at how large that thing is. And again, if you place that over New York, it would stretch between Virginia and at least Boston. So yeah, that's just a huge storm. Let's see if we can get. We do have the floater, so we can look at the floater too. Actually, I keep forgetting we have that. So here's the floater, and again, you can see it's moving, but not that fast. It's absolutely incredible to see. It is just incredible to look at this thing and see this happening before our very eyes. It really is unbelievable. I gotta say. We also have the Northern Atlantic look. We can also look at it on the Northern Atlantic satellite. Yeah, this probably is the best one. And you can see, again, look at that. That's incredible to see a storm that far to the north. Very remarkable to see. And so let's go to some of the news now on Nova Scotia here. And you can see it's finally making some more news now. We are going to look at the CBC. We're going to look at the CBC here. Nova Scotia faces major power outages. So let's go ahead and look at that.
And a reminder, you are watching CBC News Network as we have continuing coverage of post-tropical cyclone Fiona throughout Atlantic Canada here on CBC News Network, and free on CBC Gem today as well because of the severity of the situation that we are covering. Let's go to Nova Scotia now, and we have reached Peter Gregg in Halifax. He's the president and CEO of Nova Scotia Power. Peter, a very busy man. I really appreciate you taking the time, but we are, as a public service, trying to get the word out to describe the extent of what you're dealing with. Let's talk about how many people there are currently without power.
Yeah, good morning, John, and thanks for taking the time to talk to me today. We've currently got just over 400,000 of our customers without power as a result of hurricane or post-tropical storm Fiona.
So in terms of a lot to unpack here, tremendous number of people. Are we talking about what significant amount of the province is effectively in the dark right now?
It is a significant amount of the province in the dark, or at least without power for the moment. Really what you're seeing is the impacted area stretched from the western part of the province where there was lighter damage, more damage across the metro Halifax area, and then the more significant wind damage as you move sort of up the eastern shore and then towards Cape Breton, where the wind gusts were the heaviest.
So as people who are in the dark, and we understand obviously safety of your crews is so important in all of this, what is the recovery situation like for service to customers?
So overnight, we still had some significant wind gusts, but we were able to get crews out safely in the west part of the province and begin the restoration where the wind gusts had come down. I'm pleased to report that the wind gusts have come down in the metro Halifax area as well. So we've got damage assessors out on the streets right now. Then our crews should be able to safely get in the air with their bucket trucks and start making restorations in the very near future. So the weather conditions here, at least in Halifax, are looking favorable for that. But as you go beyond Halifax, we're still seeing some significant wind gusts, especially in through Cape Breton. And so until those wind gusts come down, it'll be difficult. We won't be able to get our crews out there. But we're starting to make some good progress here in Halifax.
And here's the news you can use portion of our interview in terms of residents that may be without power. Authorities.
So there's an update. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but there's an update there on what's going on. Doesn't sound like there's been any damage to transmission lines, which is quite surprising considering what a lot of their transmission lines are wood. At least. So here's another. Unfortunately, we have some of this storm surge damage. Here's some of the flooding here. That's going on. So this is again in. Look at those waves! Oh my gosh, that's insane.
And a reminder, you are watching CBC.
So that's pretty insane right there. So there's been a lot, and there's another one. Fiona wreaks havoc across Atlantic Canada. Oh my. So it says here, towns in Cape Breton and on Newfoundland's southern coast declared states of emergency Saturday as post-tropical storm Fiona, one of the strongest storms to ever strike eastern Canada, continued to lash the region. Brian Button, the mayor of Port Aux Basque, NL, that's New Labrador, I think, said that some local homes have been washed away amid high winds and surging waters. In a Facebook Live post on Saturday morning, he pleaded with residents not to roam around and urged those at risk to seek higher ground. So anybody that's been told to leave their homes, you need to leave. There are no ifs, ands, or buts, so they have to have been evacuated here. And Fiona was churning out hurricane-force winds at approximately 150 kilometers per hour when it made landfall around 4 a.m. in eastern Nova Scotia between Canso and Guysborough. The Brawny storm has knocked out power to more than 500,000 homes and businesses across the Maritimes. The Canadian Hurricane Center in Dartmouth, NS, said Fiona set an unofficial record for the lowest ever barometric pressure for a tropical storm making landfall in Canada. The recorded pressure at Hart Island was 931.6 millibars. The pressure of a storm is a very good indication of its intensity, how strong and intense the winds will be, said meteorologist Ian Hubbard. The deeper the pressure, the more intense it's going to be. The Halifax Standard Airport reported a wind gust of 109 kilometers an hour at 3 a.m. and a gust hit 135 kilometers per hour at the mouth of the Halifax Harbor. As well, a gust reached 161 kilometers per hour over Beaver Island, NS, which is along the province's eastern shore. Now, of course, these are in metric, so we've got to go and convert these over. So 161 kilometers. There's 2 miles, so it is over 100 miles an hour. That's what they have. Per hour. Hang on, this is different. 2 miles. So it was 100. Yeah, that's about right. So some of those gusts were even stronger than that, though. All right, because we saw that we had gusts up to 111 miles an hour. All right. So in Sydney, gusts hit 141 kilometers an hour. Because in Canada, they use the metric system at 3 a.m. local time, causing severe damage to some homes with structural failures going on here. First responders are really stretched tight now. We want people to stay off the roads. Several dozen people in Sydney were forced to move into a shelter. There was a tree that fell on an apartment as well. And as of 11 a.m., Nova Scotia Power was reporting 406,000 customers were in the dark, almost 80% of the homes and businesses it served. So similar to Sandy, Hurricane Sandy here on Long Island, which knocked out I think 90%. Their power is mostly out, and we don't know if there's been damage to the transmission line system or not. On Prince Edward Island, Maritime Electric was reporting that 82,000 of its 86,000 customers were without power, and NB Power reported 54,000 New Brunswick customers without power, most of them around Moncton, Shediac, and Sackville. People in Charleston woke up the howling winds as well. At Charlestown Airport, the wind was gusting to 120 kilometers per hour at 10 a.m. and a 150-kilometer gust was reported at the eastern edge of East Point. So it's really just crazy. This is a really long article and really long report. So we're going to actually play the video so you can see some of the damage.
Meantime, a state of emergency has been declared in Port au Basque, Newfoundland, as Fiona lashes the east coast.
So here's some of the footage.
You can see the intensity there as houses, some of them being washed away in surge areas, and strong gusts continue. The RCMP say first responders are dealing with electrical fires and residential flooding, and they're asking all residents to find somewhere safe to ride out this storm. NTV's Don Bradshaw joining me now from Port au Basque. Don,
there's some of the conditions they're dealing with right there.
I'm going to kind of let you talk there. It is unbelievable where you are right now.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Hurricane Fiona delivered everything that was promised. Winds are blowing here now about 100 kilometers an hour, gusting upwards of 140 kilometers an hour. Apologies, as you can tell, I'm having a little trouble standing up in this wind. We are sheltered here, so it gives you some idea of just how intense this wind is, because we are sheltered a little bit, and I'm still...
So it's tremendous damage in the area, and we'll link the videos below, but it is really crazy to see this. And again, Fiona is one hell of a storm. That's all I got to say. Fiona becomes the most intense storm on record to slam into Atlantic Canada. So read one more article here from AccuWeather. So Fiona becomes the most intense storm on record to slam into Atlantic Canada. The Atlantic Canada coast was slammed with life-threatening flooding and hurricane-force wind gusts into Saturday morning as Fiona knocked out power to more than 500,000. So after menacing Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic, and of course blacking out Puerto Rico, and there's still a lot of people without power there too as well, the Turks and Caicos, parts of the Caribbean, Fiona collided with Atlantic Canada, becoming one of the strongest storms on record to impact easternmost parts of Canada. So on Friday, Fiona began bombarding Prince Edward Island, eastern Nova Scotia, and western Newfoundland and southeastern Labrador with life-threatening flooding, damaging hurricane-force wind gusts, and dangerous storm surges. One dispatcher stated that the conditions facing Prince Edward Island were nothing like we've ever seen, with reports of downed trees and wires across the area. Chaos continued Saturday morning in southwestern Newfoundland, with at least one building washed away due to the storm in Port au Basque and several others being damaged by tides approaching residences in the area. Some residents fled parts of the community impacted by flooding, while washed-out roads cut off the town completely from certain sectors. There's the animation of it. So a scary scene in the community also unfolded Saturday morning as residents could see what appeared to be a large quantity of gasoline on the streets. All low-lying and waterfront streets were under mandatory evacuation as of 8 a.m. Saturday. In an interview with CBC Radio 1, Port Basque town manager Leon Musks, I can't pronounce that name, stated that he had warned locals about Fiona's impacts. And there's another look at it. Local state of emergency also declared in Nova Scotia, Cape Breton, and Victoria County. Look at that. There it is. This was earlier, but still, what a monster of a storm that was. The Canadian Hurricane Center warned that the storm could potentially evolve into a landmark weather event for eastern Canada this weekend. This could be a storm of a lifetime for some people. And rampant power outages were triggered due to Fiona's landfall, with over 400,000 residents of Nova Scotia without power as of Saturday morning, along with more than 82,000 outages for Prince Edward Island. In neighboring New Brunswick, more than 54,000 without power. By midday Friday, Fiona had regained Category 4 strength on the Saffir-Simpson squint scale. So it actually strengthened again with sustained winds back up to 130 miles an hour before losing wind intensity and becoming a Category 3 storm. As it entered the colder waters, the storm lost tropical characteristics Friday night. However, its rain and wind impacts to Atlantic Canada remained unchanged. Early Saturday morning, Fiona made landfall along Nova Scotia's Canso Peninsula with sustained winds of 100 miles an hour, the equivalent of a Category 2 hurricane, with the gusts recorded by a bevy of locals in the region. So here we go. Here are the wind gusts from Fiona. You can see 111. Yeah, that's incredible right there. To see that far north. This is just incredible. And you've got to remember, if they can get hit like this that far north, imagine what's in store for us when the storm takes that track. Category 3 hurricane, maybe even a Category 4 for Long Island, not out of the question in the future, which really is frightening. So as of 11 a.m., Fiona continues to move northward at a brisk pace with a forward speed of 25 miles an hour. Although Fiona remained non-tropical, it continues to pack sustained winds of 80 miles an hour, equivalent to a Category 1 hurricane. Some of the highest gusts in Atlantic Canada thus far were noted in RSI, Nova Scotia, 111. We already read that. Fiona is expected to continue moving quickly northward through Atlantic Canada, bring damaging winds, flooding, rain, and coastal flooding. Satellite imagery on Saturday showed that Fiona was a massive storm with hurricane force winds extending outward up to 115 miles from the center and tropical storm force winds extending outward up to 405 miles from the center. Fiona will likely be the most intense storm on record when taking into account central pressure and magnitude of wind gusts that are expected to strike eastern Nova Scotia this weekend. An unconfirmed report from Hart Island, Nova Scotia, recorded the lowest air pressure in Canadian history. If confirmed, this report would certainly be momentous and would show how unusually powerful Fiona has managed to become. And in 2019, Hurricane Dorian brought significant damage to Nova Scotia as a Category 1 storm on the Saffir-Simpson wind hurricane scale and was in the process of losing wind intensity when it made landfall on the south coast of Nova Scotia. Winds gusted as high as 96 miles an hour along the coast, with widespread damage due to structures in town, and more than 500,000 people in the region lost power. Dorian also made landfall over a more populated area, whereas Fiona's landfall was in an area that was more sparsely populated. But however, Fiona is larger and stronger than Dorian and will continue to bring severe impacts to the region that could be worse than Dorian in 2019. Fiona will bring widespread power outages due to high winds, flooding, and isolated storm surge and massive seas offshore in the Gulf of St. Lawrence. Widespread heavy downpours as well, 4 to 8 inches, could occur across Nova Scotia. So the rainfall here, this is the rainfall map, obviously, we could have. So we'll link all these articles here. And this is actually a little video from a sail drone inside Fiona. And it's absolutely incredible. This is the sail drone here. Waves up to 47 feet. But I want to read this part to you here. With progressively colder waters prevalent over the northern Atlantic due to the icy Labrador current, powerful hurricanes quickly lose their punch or transform into tropical wind and rainstorms. But this year, water temperatures have been running 10 to 20 degrees Fahrenheit higher than average over the North Atlantic, especially just south of Atlantic Canada. And those warmer than usual ocean waters result in less weakening of the hurricane or a slower transformation into a rainstorm. Where temperatures range from near 60 degrees near the coast of Nova Scotia, that is very warm, to 84 degrees off the southeast coast of New England. So this is all a concern for us, all right? So it's very, very concerning here. So this is a very long article here from, and it says, just a week ago, the 2020 ACE value stood at 31.1, and was dramatically trailing the pace of last year, which finished at a value of 145.7. But thanks to Fiona, which has ranked up an ACE value of 25 through early September 23, the most of any Atlantic hurricane so far. The season's ACE total has catapulted to 57.9. So it is it's still a normal value is 84.4, which is still behind, but we're going to make up for that, trust me, because we got a lot of tropical activity going on. So yeah, just incredible here. This is probably the best article of them all that I read for you, but this is all due to the warmer water. This is what I've been talking about, and this is something that we really have to be concerned about going forward, because it's going to be this is still going on over here. We still have this incredible storm that's going on right now, and it really is something to see. Let's go now to the. I just want to go to this just to illustrate what we've been talking about here. All right, so and this is why we are very concerned about this. So we go to sea surface temperature anomaly. You see all the warm water off the east here, and you can see all this warm water. So if Fiona didn't do this and it made a left-hand turn in Long Island, I think we could have been looking at a Category 4 hurricane here on Long Island. So keep that in mind. And next time it could be us, and I don't want to think about what will happen here when that happens. But this is all due to the climate crisis that we're going through, and it's only getting worse. So, like I said, we're screwed. The climate is getting worse, and you're going to expect more and more of these natural disasters. We have to adapt. Look at how warm the water is off Greenland, by the way. Look at these temperature anomalies here, these bright yellows. This is why this storm is going to hold on to its intensity. This is the new normal. This is the real new normal that we have to really be very concerned about, prepare for the worst as we deal with these climate crises. We need to harden our power grid. No wood poles. I think they all should be concrete or steel, or bury whatever possible, and a whole bunch of other stuff that we're going to have to do to adapt to this climate that we are now in as the earth continues to warm. So that is going to wrap up this video here on Fiona. My prayers go out to everybody there in Nova Scotia, Maritime, Canada, dealing with this horrific natural disaster. This is just one of many more natural disasters that we're going to see, or should I say unnatural disasters, because all fueled by the warming oceans, the warming climate, due to burning fossil fuels. So that's going to wrap up this video. Thank you for watching.